Our story starts with our boy, who became a total goat in knife skills. After deciding to drop out of high school, he dedicated 20 years of his life to becoming the finest swordsman in the country. One day, while working in the kitchen, a staff member points out his alarm. Our boy checks it and realizes he must have accidentally set it to vibrate. Seeing the notification, he briefly wonders if it's from that game he deleted earlier, but assumes his phone is just acting up. At that moment, another staff member interrupts to inform him that a guest has arrived. Not in the mood to deal with anyone, our boy instructs them to say he went to buy milk. But the guest, a dude who looks like a crypto scam salesman, walks straight into the kitchen. Without wasting any time, the guy asks if our boy is willing to work for him and casually offers a 300 million advance payment. Unfazed, our boy slices a fish so cleanly it looks like paper and says, "The kitchen should be clean. I won't tolerate dirt here." Then he tells the guy to get out. The crypto bro, clearly not used to rejection, gets mad and yells, "A sword saint like you shouldn't be wasting your skills cutting fish in a place like this. Come work for me." But our boy, being the absolute Chad he is, grabs a kitchen knife. The sight of it is enough to scare the crypto bro and his guards. As they run for their lives, the crypto bro yells, "I'm not giving up," before bolting out of the kitchen. Later, while taking a break, a staff member jokes, "If that were me, I'd have taken the offer immediately. Why'd you turn it down?" But our boy says, "All I've ever done is slice fish heads with a knife. I don't know the first thing about being a thug." The staff member grins, "But you could use your reputation as a sword master to intimidate people without even lifting a finger. No harm done. You'd make a fortune and buy yourself a house." Our boy shakes his head. "Even if someone offered me billions, I'd still say no." The staff member then nods at the notifications on his phone and teases, "What's this? Got a girlfriend?" Our boy, proudly rocking his V card plus premium, replies, "Nah, it's just a game." As the conversation ends, the boss calls for the cleaning guy, who leaves first. Left alone, our boy reflects on his past. He remembers how his family went bankrupt when he was young, forcing him to grind every single day. He wonders if he's been too focused on earning money, losing sight of everything else. Just then, his phone vibrates again. He looks at it and sees a notification. The Demon King's invasion of the academy isn't over yet. Curious, he taps on the notification and opens the game. As the screen lights up, a prompt to touch the screen appears. Hearing the nostalgic soundtrack and seeing the female characters, he can't help but think, "My waifu is still as beautiful as ever." But before he can process anything else, the phone flickers, and then our boy is blinded by a bright light. Meanwhile, the same staff member from earlier calls out, "Hey, the boss is asking for you," but it's too late. Our boy has been isekai'd. The staff member shakes his head, assuming our boy has just gone to take a shit, but his phone left behind on the rooftop has the message says, "Transfer complete." We get more into the details about the game, which follows a pay-to-win model with a standard auto-hunting system, just like countless mass-produced mobile games. But the reason our boy is playing this game is because he became a weeb after seeing the female characters. Like a true weeb, he spent all his money on it. But despite spending everything, he ended up as a background character. His name is Kang Jiyama. While walking, he accidentally bumps into a blue-haired woman and notices something strange. The setting of Divine Protection resembles Korea. Names, locations, and geography are only slightly altered, with a few minor character variations. Thanks to this, Kang adapts quickly. A whole year passes, and now he's living as a teenager, unsure whether this is real or just part of the game. For him, it's a life he can't fully enjoy, much like his previous one. One day, he comes back from school, and his parents show him the acceptance letter from the academy. They praise him and tell him to pack everything. Meanwhile, our boy feels that his modest dream of living a normal life has been shattered once again. He had tried to avoid the ceremony several times, but couldn't. Looking at the family photo, he wonders how the Kang he possessed managed to get accepted into such a prestigious school. He explains that last year, Kang manifested divine powers, took the entrance exam immediately, and passed. Before he possessed Kang, the boy had already unlocked divine powers and passed the exam. Our boy thinks maybe this guy is a genius. He explains that divine powers are special abilities, similar to skills in a game, but not everyone possesses them. These powers typically manifest through genetics, and based on whether one has divine power, society is divided into 3 classes: the privileged, the commoners, and the poor. The academy where Kang was admitted was originally founded to preserve the power of the elite. Though established under the pretense of hero cultivation, in reality, it's only for upper-class families. However, recently, a system known as special admission was introduced for non-hero families. The character our boy possesses was admitted as one of these special students. He also understands that heroes are essential because of the threat posed by the Demon King. But despite all this, he knows this isn't reality. It's just a training ground preparing students for war. Our boy says divine power, and a status window appears, still unfamiliar to him. He sees the divine power he's unlocked and notices a skill called painlessness, which has a 12-hour cooldown. He sees it as nonsense. His attention shifts to the divine power granted to him upon possessing Kang, the blessing of the sword god, with an activation time of infinity. Our boy never saw this blessing in the game before. The power allows him to slash anything, but the activation condition is that his sword must be exactly 30 centimeters in length and less than 5 centimeters in width, which just so happens to be his trusty Sashimi knife. Back to square one, our boy wonders if he packed everything and realizes he forgot his equipment. He knows even the lowest grade E-rank equipment costs tens of millions, while average C-rank equipment costs hundreds of millions. A and S-rank items must be treasures in themselves. He understands that the tuition alone is exorbitant, and he doesn't want to end up like an average American college student drowning in debt. So, he decides to head to the nearest Walmart to purchase a weapon. He remembers his first master's words, "A true master never blames their equipment." The next day, dressed in his uniform and entering the academy, the instructor says, "Why do you have regular kitchen knives from Walmart?" He thinks our boy is playing a prank on him and decides to lecture him, saying that how can he use a kitchen knife as a weapon in the class placement test? But our boy simply replies that it's his weapon and that he's a special admission student from a modest family. He explains that the tuition alone was already a huge burden on his parents, so he couldn't justify adding the cost of an expensive weapon. The instructor sees the color of his name tag and understands that for a student not from an upper-class background, the academy's fees would indeed be overwhelming. He feels guilty for pushing away such a sincere student. Our boy then says, "Blaming equipment is something only amateurs do." With that line, the instructor sees our boy's unyielding spirit and concludes that he's the real GOAT and approves his weapon. Meanwhile, the students behind him recognize him as a special admission student. They whisper among themselves, wondering how someone like him ended up in such a prestigious academy. The instructor shuts them up, warning that after the evaluation, depending on their actions, he can either be their angel or their devil. Hearing this, our boy gets PTSD from his past and decides to step outside for a break. He finds a bench and feels relieved that he's completed the equipment inspection and survived the entrance ceremony. Now, all that's left is the class placement exam. As he sits there, he realizes that he will be studying for the next 3 years. He thinks about how the academy looks different compared to the graphics in the game, feeling that attending a school meant for the upper class feels unreal, especially since he had to drop out of high school due to family circumstances in his previous life. Then, the class placement test is announced. Students are instructed to gather at the training hall by 1 p.m. He says that while the entrance ceremony is over, the class placement test remains important. He must familiarize himself with his knife. He remembers his master's advice, never put the knife down, even for a single day. Even while you sleep, keep holding it. Kang feels as though he's unconsciously adopted his master's habits. After 20 years of living by the knife, he wonders if a 1-year break has dulled his skills. He removes the cover from the knife and finds it far better than expected. So, he decides to test it by cutting a leaf. But suddenly, the system alerts him that the weapon has met the activation conditions, and the blessing of the sword god activates. However, since both his physical body and the weapon are at too low a level, the system initiates suppression to synchronize with the user. Shocked, our boy can't believe that simply drawing the knife triggered the blessing. As the synchronization completes, the system wishes him, "May the blessing of the gods be with you." Then, an extreme pain strikes his entire body, and he realizes that if this continues, he's going to die. Suddenly, the world shatters like glass. He finds himself in a new space and realizes he's living in the Matrix. He drops the knife, and the world becomes normal again, bringing him back to reality. However, his body still feels the pain. While he understands the activation of divine power, he wonders if the chaos surrounding him is linked to the sword god's blessing. The backlash is unbearable, and although the divine power of painlessness offers some relief from mild soreness, it can't alleviate this kind of agony. Our boy realizes that using his skill in this manner means he can't use it again. Then, an announcement comes for all students to gather at the hall immediately. Our boy sees the sashimi knife and decides to pick it up for safety concerns. He tries to pick it up, hoping it will be okay this time, but the sword god's blessing activates once more, and he feels pain again. Meanwhile, in the training hall, all the students have gathered. Parents chat about how much they spent on admission, but suddenly, they see an old man who is a 7-star hero, King Siegfried, a descendant of Aaron Nibelung and the direct disciple of the founding hero, Valor. Seeing him, the parents quickly return to their seats. Then, we get our first mommy character in this series, the 7-star hero, Media Poison. She says, "It's been half a century since we last met, but the old man says you still haven't begun dressing like an academy director, and turning 70 doesn't seem to have effect on you." Wait, she's 70? Anyway, she says that age is just a number, and every woman wants to remain beautiful until her last day. She offers to use her blessings to make Siegfried look 10 years younger. However, Siegfried dismisses her offer and says that humans should prioritize their inner nature, but she calls him an old fart, irritating the old man. She also says he's changed a lot and brings her to places like this. She assumes his granddaughter must be quite beautiful, and they both realize the test is about to begin inside the training hall. Our boy sees that he's the only one with black hair, and the others think he might be a foreigner. Suddenly, a girl enters the hall, capturing the attention of every student, including our boy. She is none other than Abel von Nibelung, the granddaughter of the Sword Emperor and the main heroine of the game, the sole reason our boy spent a fortune on the game. The subspace was created by the ancestral hero Balor when he established the academy. It is a separate dimension where pain and damage are real, but the consequences don't carry over to reality. In this space, even taking someone down is overlooked, as there's no interference from the outside world. Siegfried and Media discuss the tradition of subspace battles. This year, they're trying something new, a battle royale format. Participants will be split into groups of 10 for a survival game with no restrictions on equipment. Siegfried notes that removing restrictions will give privileged students an unfair advantage. Media explains that a compromise was necessary since the academy is largely funded by the nobility. She had to work hard to introduce this new system. Inside the training hall, all the students start simping over the granddaughter of the Sword Emperor. Meanwhile, our boy is stunned to see her in 3D, so much more real than her in-game counterpart. While the other students are fools for trying to approach her, he admits he might have been a simp just like them if he hadn't already known better. Having played the game, he knows Abel possesses the Miracle Blessing M, which ties her to the game's protagonist. In this world, beautiful people always seem to have someone by their side. As a special student, he feels out of place and decides to live a peaceful school life. He sets 3 principles for his future: finish his studies without any incident, secure a conventional job, and live safely. While heroes earn big bucks, just drawing his knife earlier left his body trembling. He starts looking for other comfortable jobs. While lost in thought, an announcement declares that the exam for the 783rd year of Hoken Academy has begun. The rules are explained. It's a battle royale among 10 randomly assigned cadets. The top 3 will join the prestigious Star and Dragon classes, while the bottom 3 will be relegated to the ordinary class. Class placement depends entirely on this result, with no time limit. Recognizing the setup from the game, our boy decides to finish quickly and avoid drawing his knife unless absolutely necessary. As the subspace generation device activates, the exam begins. Group after group finishes their evaluations. Media notes to Siegfried that Abel's time of 7 minutes and 14 seconds is impressive. Wanting a fair test, Abel used a C-rank weapon to achieve this result, placing her among the top 10 in Academy history. Though she couldn't break Siegfried's record, he acknowledges it as fitting for his bloodline. Preparing to leave, he dismisses the final group as unimportant, until everyone senses something strange. Then the sky shatters, and some students fall from above, along with our boy's sashimi knife. Media quickly calls for medical staff to assist the fallen students, but our boy lies on the ground, peacefully asleep. Flashback to earlier in the event. The twins of malevolence are bullying weaker students, beating them down for 30 minutes. Our boy remains unnoticed because they see him as too weak to bother with. After finishing with the others, the twins target a lone girl. One twin, licking blood from his gloves, decides to finish her off. Unable to stay silent, our boy screams at them, questioning their cruelty and calling them psychopaths. This draws their attention. Spotting his special student tag, they mock him as a lowlife. One twin approaches, threatening to rip out his tongue. Panicking, our boy scrambles for options. He considers using the blessing of painlessness, but knows 30 seconds of numbness won't save him. Then he notices his bag and draws his knife, despite the agony it causes. Seeing this, the twins laugh. One sneers, asking if he's mocking them, while the terrified girl watches in silence. The twin launches himself into the air, ready to strike. With no other choice, our boy activates the blessing of painlessness, hoping it will numb the pain. The blessing of the sword god activates. The twin mocks the small, pathetic knife, but Kang knows this is a person, not a fish. He recalls asking his master if a sashimi knife could ever cut a person. His master had replied that such things only happen in movies, but then Kang remembers the skill's effect. It will cut if you slash. With a precise swing, Kang slices the twin's arm clean off midair. The system flashes a notification. May the blessing of the gods be with you. In his previous life, Kang recalls asking his boss why gangsters use sashimi knives. His boss, irritated by the question, throws the knife at him and clarifies that he should refer to him as master, not boss. Curious, our boy presses on, explaining his fascination. Kang explained his reasoning. A wide chef's knife causes the skin to contract, making it hard to withdraw, while a sashimi knife, being narrow, allows for multiple stabs and easy retraction. However, sashimi knives are primarily used for slicing fish, and wondered why they couldn't be used the same way on people. Exasperated, his master explained, fish lie flat. If they were standing, you wouldn't even be able to slice bread in one go. Our boy is disappointed because in manga, it always looks like a clean slice every time. He assumes his boss simply lacks the skill, but his master smacks the shit out of him, tells him to call him master, and makes it clear that even if the god of knives appeared, it wouldn't work that way. Back in the subspace, our boy manages to slice the bully's arm clean off in one strike. Everyone, including the bully, is in shock. The bully screams in pain, cries for help, and tries to run, begging his brother to save him. But Kang, showing no mercy, delivers a clean strike that severs his head. The older twin sees this horror and screams, calms himself, because in void space, his brother isn't truly dead. He picks up his brother's weapon, amplifying his defense and jumping power, and prepares to face Kang. Confident in his 3 A-rank blessings, privileges, and he launches himself to strike. For a moment, Kang blinds him with his movements. When the twin regains his sight, he sees multiple knives lodged in his body. He looks at Kang, who still holds the sashimi knife. In a final breath, the twin mutters, "Black Ghost," before collapsing. The blessing of painlessness ends, and Kang feels the full backlash of his actions. Overwhelmed by pain, he loses consciousness. Kang wakes up in a hospital bed. As he rises, a man with a long nose announces the student has regained consciousness. To his surprise, Kang sees the 2 7-star heroes, Siegfried and Media, standing before him. Media asks our boy about his health. Confused, Kang wonders why they're here. Siegfried wastes no time and demands to know what Kang did during the exam and about the strange sensation everyone felt earlier. Kang realizes it wasn't just his imagination, it really was him. Noticing Siegfried ready to draw his sword, Kang explains that while it was a pocket dimension, the actions of the other students went too far. He states he is ready to accept any punishment without complaint. Media intervenes, asking Siegfried why he's treating a student so harshly. She reveals that while Kang was unconscious, it was Siegfried who unblocked his blood vessels, saving him. She pleads, "Give him a break for my sake." Media's words fluster Siegfried, who turns into a Lego man. Kang, now feeling as light as a feather, realizes the treatment has restored his body. Media explains that while he was unconscious, they reviewed the footage of the subspace battle, including the moment when he threw himself to protect a pitiful female student, and she thirsts even more and calls him the prince she's always dreamed of. and starts flirting with him while the old man decides to stop and asks Media to show some dignity. She reassures Kang that no repercussions will arise from his actions and reveals that the twins only got into the academy by licking the boots of the elders. They will be withdrawn from the academy, much to Kang's relief. Finally, Media and Siegfried inform Kang that he is the top scorer in the exam, which shocks our boy. While they congratulate him, Kang realizes he's back to square one. So much for living a peaceful life. After some time, in an office building, Media says it's been 20 years since she became the head of the academy, and she has never heard anything like that before. In a flashback, our boy rejects the offer to promote to star class, shocking both Siegfried and Media. Confused, Media asks Kang if he understands what it means to be in star class, wondering if she heard him correctly. She explains that while the elders were furious, this decision was determined directly by the subspace itself. Kang pauses for a moment before replying that despite everything, he still doesn't like it, further shocking both of them. Returning to the present, Media asks Siegfried if he is upset that Kang took the top spot instead of his granddaughter. Siegfried, having seen the footage himself, replies that there is nothing more foolish than questioning the judgment of the subspace. He acknowledges that Kang's skills were outstanding and showed a level of sword mastery beyond expectations. When Siegfried unlocked Kang's blocked meridians, he felt something that shouldn't be there, yet somehow it was. While he is deep in thought, Media suddenly starts simping for our boy, saying that if she were 10 years younger, but then she quickly adds that she could still do it now. She then asks Siegfried for his opinion, to which he responds, "Do you know what students call a girl like you these days?" Curious, Media asks him to continue, and Siegfried drops the B word, instantly pissing her off. Later on, our boy heads to his class, thinking that this is the best compromise he could have made. Media promoted him to a class higher than Tiger class, but told him to keep it a secret. He wonders if he could have just laid low instead of getting caught up in some power struggle. As he enters the class, all the students glance at him, but the moment they see Kang's green name tag, they immediately lose interest and go back to chatting. Kang is surprised that he was completely ignored, which means the headmaster managed to keep everything under wraps. He thinks this might actually be a good thing. At that moment, a red-haired girl approaches Kang and thanks him for saving her back then, leaving Kang speechless. She then reminds him about the subspace incident. Hearing this, Kang wonders why she is using formal language when they are the same age. Our boy tells her there's no need to thank him since anyone would have done the same in that situation. However, the red-haired girl replies, "That's not true." In his mind, Kang thinks that it seemed like he saved her, but in reality, he was just trying to survive. He then points out that they haven't introduced themselves yet, so he goes first. The red-haired girl then introduces herself as Chloe. Our boy responds, "Nice to meet you, Chloe." Kang hadn't expected them to be in the same class. Internally, he wonders who Chloe is, as he had played through most of the game, but doesn't recognize this character. As far as he knows, the later stages of the main story focus on the battle with the demon tribe, so it's unexpected to see a new character appearing at this time. Finally, Kang realizes that Chloe, like him, might just be a background character. Kang asks Chloe if she can keep what happened during the exam a secret, and Chloe replies, "Of course." Just as Chloe was about to say something else, the teacher enters the classroom. Oh, it's the same guy who inspected our boy's weapon. He introduces himself as the instructor of the Wolf class and congratulates the students on their admission, encouraging them to be proud of this achievement. Since it's the first day, Instructor Lee announces that they will begin with some simple physical training. He instructs the students to change into their training clothes and gather at the training ground within 30 minutes. One of the students asks about the training course, which consists of a simple routine: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, followed by 10 laps around the training ground. I think bro follows Saitama's training, and the only thing missing is eating a banana. Our boy immediately thinks the instructor is training all the cadets into becoming bald-headed, cape-wearing heroes. Trying to escape this one-punch man training, he asks the instructor for a break, claiming he is feeling sick, which is a classic move that works in real life. I did it in my school days. However, the instructor shuts him down, reminding him that he is the star of the class and that the headmaster gave him permission to attend all classes. Our boy thinks, "Damn that old hag," and asks for permission to use the restroom to unload his load, but the instructor gaslights him, saying, "See you in the training ground." At the training ground, our boy feels exhausted from all the running. All the other students are ahead of him, and Kang feels like he is about to pass out. Chloe approaches him and asks if he's okay. Our boy weakly asks what lap they're on, and she replies, 5. Then she casually mentions that she's already on her 9th lap and cheers him on to do his best before suddenly dashing ahead like Usain Bolt, leaving our boy completely shit-faced. Later, in his dorm, our boy downs an entire crate of water and lies down in his bed, feeling hungry. Facing an unexpected problem, he goes to buy some food at the counter, only to find they accept only meal tickets. He decides to buy a ticket, but sees the prices. And I gotta say, what the hell are they cooking there for these kinds of prices? He finishes his last drop of water, curses the insane prices, and decides to sleep instead of worrying about his hunger. He calls himself an idiot for not accepting money from his parents earlier. Then, a blessing window pops up, showing his physical stats have increased to 12. He thinks it's not a waste of time, as he's now rocking that sleeper build with a lot more muscle. He wonders if the blessing of the sword god has cleared his blood vessels. At this rate, Kang thinks it's almost like an evolution. However, the blessing of the sword god still hasn't fully expanded, and if he keeps improving step by step, he might be able to handle a short sword soon. Looking at the Sashimi sword, our boy recalls being terrified of holding a sword during the entrance ceremony. Now, if he's not holding one, his hands itch, probably because of the blessing. He feels proud of himself. Suddenly, Kang hears a knock on his door. He asks who it is, and upon opening it, he's surprised to see Chloe standing there. She asks if she's disturbing his rest. Our boy replies that he was just lying down and asks what's up. Chloe explains that she hasn't seen him in the campus cafeteria all week and was worried he might not be feeling well. He tells her that he usually doesn't eat food made by others, though in his mind, he admits he's starving and would eat anything made by others. Chloe invites him to dinner, and without hesitation, he agrees. He's relieved that he doesn't need to starve or go dumpster diving. Later, in Chloe's dorm, she thanks him for cooking so quickly. She only boiled fish and never expected food to taste like this. Kang checks the fridge and finds it filled with fish. He asks Chloe if she really likes fish, to which she replies that she does, as she's from a seaside area. As he starts to cook, the only problem is the blessing of the sword god. Our boy asks Chloe if she has a longer knife. She pulls out a katana, which makes him use the blessing, and he finishes the dish in just 21 seconds. Chloe is impressed by Kang's skills, while our boy thinks to himself that it felt like a masterpiece. Chloe asks how he cooks so well, and Kang replies that he used to work part-time at a Japanese restaurant. This is the first time Chloe's heard of part-time jobs. She looks confused, and Kang asks if she doesn't know about part-time work. Chloe apologizes, but Kang tells her there's no need to. In his mind, he reflects on the disparity in their backgrounds. Anyway, Kang says he's glad she enjoyed the meal. Chloe then tells him that since he made the meal, she'll take care of the dishes. Kang thanks her and says he'll leave the dishes to her. He then goes to look at the moon, feeling full and satisfied. However, he notices that Chloe has gotten water all over her uniform. Observing her, he wonders if she's ever washed dishes. Then, a diary falls from Chloe's desk. Inside, he sees it's written that someone helped her during the class placement test, and she feels she must repay him. Kang thinks it's cute, but when he turns the next page, he sees the entire pages filled with "I love him." Our boy freezes, but before he can close the book, Chloe sees him holding it. We get a flashback of Chloe's past. Her family trains assassins from a young age, and she was trained to be a cold-blooded killer. She enrolled in the academy to stay out of sight and remain hidden, until she met Kang, who stood up for her. She remembers him using his sword skills to save her. During her childhood, she had secretly hidden a fairy tale about a princess trapped in a castle and a prince's love. Now, seeing Kang, she blushes, thinking this is love. And that's how an yandere is born. Back at the dorm, Chloe stares at Kang with a yandere look. Our boy thinks he's done for. He says the dinner was good and tries to leave, but Chloe asks if he saw what was written in the diary. Our boy says she really studies hard, and Chloe pulls out her katana, shocking him. He doesn't understand what's going on. Looking out the window, he realizes they're on the 4th floor, and if he jumps, he'll become a pancake. The only exit is behind Chloe, and he's trapped. Chloe starts to move closer with her yandere aura. Our boy notices she's unconscious, and seems to have a rough idea about such things. Seeing her dead pupils, he's sure Chloe is a yandere, with her fierce, energetic attitude being a split personality. Her yandere side is already overwhelming. He thinks opening the diary triggered this personality change, and considers it dangerous, as Chloe will probably chase him until he dies. With only 9 seconds left on his painlessness skill, he notices the sashimi knife, but realizes it's too far away. Chloe gets ready to strike, so he grabs a box cutter, activating the blessing of the sword god. He faces her head on and says her hair needs a trim, making a slash. After a while, Chloe wakes up in her bed with her hair trimmed, wondering where Kang went. She recalls that he was looking out the window while she was doing the dishes. She remembers sneaking a glance at him, and then realizes her katana is missing. Fortunately, she spots it beside her bed and feels a sense of relief. Chloe notes that she tends to lose consciousness when handling a katana. She starts feeling embarrassed, her face flushing red as she wonders if she did something strange while unconscious. Spotting the box cutter on the floor, she questions what it's doing there. Upon further reflection, Chloe notices that her hair is shorter and considers that the box cutter may have been used to cut it. Finally, she notices that Kang has tidied up, and when she sees her cut hair in the bin, she feels a bit yandere. She writes, "I love you," in her diary, before she forgets. The scene shifts outside, where our boy spits out rainbow and feels glad he finished before the blessing ended. But he throws up everything he ate and feels hunger creep back. He thinks he got lucky with Chloe because if he'd been ambushed, he would have been dead. In the end, he only managed to cut her hair and escape, doing a quick cleanup afterward. He reflects on how, when he was thrown into this game, he had no ambitions. For someone like him, who's good with sashimi knife skills, there are only 2 other legendary blessings, and the protagonist gets an OP sword, while our boy can only use sashimi knives. Moreover, since entering the academy, his continuous encounters with unrealistic figures and situations have made him forget his goal. Kang thinks he has stopped for various reasons. Come to think of it, isn't there even a single ordinary person in this world? He has a vague understanding of the game. It's been just over a week since he entered the academy, and according to the story, the main character's blessing should be activating around now as they're finishing enrollment. This means the real story is about to start. Kang seems to know the general plot, but he hasn't seen the ending. Of course, knowing the official story up to the midpoint is an advantage. Whatever happens, Kang decides to follow the official route. If everything gets mixed up, it'll just waste whatever merits remain. If Kang's memory serves him right, the story darkens significantly from the second semester of the 3rd year. The birth of a hero and the demon race will unify their forces under demon lords and threaten the academy. The conflict between demons and humanity will eventually escalate into a world war. Following the typical fantasy plot, all the characters will die, and Kang gets pissed off, deciding to delete the game. With that thought in mind, what's even more chilling is that this terrible war is supposed to happen in this world, and Kang wonders if he will die too. But then he realizes there are still nearly 3 years left, so now he needs a more realistic goal than ever. Kang decides to get stronger, and if the mass-produced game narratives have a happy ending, the world will likely be saved by the protagonist. However, Kang needs power to protect himself. He can't live with the fate of potentially dying at any moment due to the war. Therefore, Kang should train himself to survive without drawing too much attention. If he stands out, there's a chance he'll be forced to fight the demon army, something he intends to avoid. Additionally, Kang needs to be cautious about using the blessing of painlessness, as the burden on his body is too great. Then, a status window opens up, showing that his performance is impressive, but it also contains a lot of new information. Physical rank, mental rank, weapon rank. The numbers appear to represent levels and ranks, but this detailed info is something Kang doesn't fully understand. As he clicks on it, a notification pops up. Access denied. Kang brushes it off, thinking it's not important right now. He realizes that he needs a new weapon, though. He can't rely solely on the blessing of painlessness for 30 seconds indefinitely. He also needs to train with swords that don't meet the conditions for the sword god's blessing. Fortunately, next month there will be a practical combat training session replacing the midterm exams, and the reward is a B-class weapon. If Kang can handle it, it will be enough for graduation. While thinking about that, Abel approaches from behind and tells Kang that it's her spot. Our boy is shocked to see her, but shifts aside. He can't believe he's seeing his waifu in real life and blanks out. Kang thinks that it's her spot, but aren't the benches public property? He considers that if he gets involved with the heroine, the main story will definitely become complicated. He then sees her in close-up and thinks, damn, she's pretty. Abel says the stars are beautiful tonight, but we all know our boy says something even more beautiful just now. She asks if his weapon is also a sword. Kang asks Abel how she knows that, and she replies that her grandfather told her. She also heard that sword masters have a different look in their eyes. Kang blushes, meeting her gaze, and Abel asks if he wants to try holding her sword. Kang replies that the sword doesn't feel heavy at all, but he's surprised to see Abel sulking. Kang thinks that Abel is difficult to get used to, and wonders if this is really the Abel he knows. Then Abel asks if Kang knows her. Kang wonders if Abel suspects him and responds, more or less. However, Abel shakes her head. I don't know you. In his mind, our boy questions what Abel's point is. She continues, saying, it's rather weird for you to know my name while I don't know yours. Kang asks if he really needs to introduce himself to someone he just met. Abel replies, one can never be too sure. You could be a spy for the Demon King, infiltrating the academy as a student for all I know. She also suggests there's no good reason for Kang to be out alone this late at night. Both of them exchange serious looks, and Kang thinks this is going nowhere. Our boy asks Abel why she's out here. Abel responds, isn't it obvious? I'm here to exercise and train. Kang tells her that he's been exercising too. Abel asks him what kind of exercise, and with a straight face, our boy replies, breathing. Abel thinks it's weird, but as Kang looks at her hands, he notices the marks of intense training. Seeing Kang's gaze, Abel quickly hides her hands, but our boy tells her that she's very diligent. Abel responds, of course I am, explaining that she needs to be perfect all the time to uphold her bloodline's reputation. She then admits that this is the first time she's ever lost, but instead of frustration, she felt relieved and wanted to know the person who defeated her. She wanted to find out who they were so she could crush them next time. Our boy is stunned to hear this and asks if she really has to go that far. Abel firmly replies, it's a matter of pride. She goes on to explain that she kept asking her grandfather for details, but he told her that the top student wasn't even in her class. To make matters worse, the top student had the nerve to skip the oath ceremony. After calming down, Abel reflects, I'm sharing all of this with someone I don't even know. Kang asks Abel why she's telling him all this. Abel simply responds, because you're weak. She further explains that the motto of her family is to be firm with the strong and merciful to the weak. Abel adds that all her classmates are exceptional at what they do, so she doesn't have any friends. Hearing this, Kang thinks this must be why the main character is so distant. Abel then tells Kang that she's going to turn in for the night. Hearing this, Kang says his goodbye. Abel sits quietly for a moment before asking, are you really not going to tell me your name? Our boy simply replies, no. The scene shifts to Kang's classroom, where he sits alone, reflecting on how his life at the academy is much calmer than he had anticipated. Chloe has already blended into the class, making friends with ease, while Kang is busy avoiding eye contact and trying not to run into her. Whenever their gazes meet, Chloe's new friends glare at him with icy looks, but our boy couldn't care less about them. He's not the only unique one in the Tiger class, though. Despite being in the same class, most students are reluctant to interact with each other, as if holding on to a sense of entitlement. Thinking about it, Kang notes that it's actually a good thing not to be in the upper class, especially since this is the season when the Star and Dragon classes start forming political factions. Even back when he played this game, those students always felt like clowns. Just the thought of being in that class now makes Kang dizzy. But at least he's eating well, and that's what matters. He wonders what he should eat today. We see that media gave Kang a card for daily use, a perk for being the top student. She also apologized for the delay, explaining that it's actually a faculty member's card. Eating 3 times a day, Kang felt pure bliss. Now, he's just living life as Kang, fulfilling his duties as a student faithfully without significantly impacting the main scenario. He resolves to spend the next 3 years like this. If he can manage that, he believes he can achieve the future he's imagined. The scene then shifts to the next classroom, where the teacher gives a history lesson about the hero who defeated the Demon King's right-hand man and emerged victorious. However, he injured his arm and could no longer participate in battle. The war had no clear victor, but fortunately, the humans and demons reached a truce, leading to the establishment of the academy to nurture future generations. The teacher continues, explaining that the first human-demon war led to the signing of the non-aggression treaty between the two parties, ushering in an era of peace that has lasted for the past 700 years. Hearing this, students begin chatting about whether there will be a war in their their generation. Meanwhile, Kang thinks to himself that he's the only one aware that the first crack in this so-called peace is not far off. It's unnatural for everyone to be so accustomed to this serenity. As much as he'd like to warn media, he is uncertain of the future. Although she does not hide her desire to leave her position as dean as soon as possible, she was the first person in the story to sense the abnormality. She was also the first of the 7 heroes to step up and protect the students. While Kang didn't play much of the game, he did look it up and found that Media was the first hero to be taken down by the Demon King. He thinks that if only he didn't know that, then maybe things would feel normal. The teacher then informs the students that's all for today and reminds them to study hard for the exam in 2 weeks. As class ends, students rush outside together. Seeing them, Kang wonders what's happening, then realizes it must be that time. Today is the 5th of May. Kang steps outside, thinking that if his memory serves him correctly, today marks the enrollment of the world's main character, Leon, and with him, the 700 years of peace will soon end. Kang reflects on the protagonist, Leon, who is one of those overpowered main characters that gets all the girls, including the 3 main heroines. Even Leon's party members are impressive, and Kang knows that in 3 years, Leon, blessed by miracles, will be one of the first to be drafted. In reality, drafted is just a nicer way of putting it. Kang refuses to go through that again. By the way, even Valor was only able to seal the 1st Legion commander, which makes Kang wonder just how powerful the Demon King truly is. But he knows this isn't some insane story where the protagonist loses. Just then, Leon looks at Kang and smiles, surprising him. Kang reflects on the power of the blessing of miracles and assumes that Leon, as the protagonist, will be able to handle things on his own. Our boy notices that Leon has a trustworthy face and, without realizing it, finds himself convinced. The scene then shifts to the training hall, where Kang practices with a wooden sword. After a few swings, he realizes that deviating from the standard technique means the blessing doesn't manifest. He needs a certain level of skill in swordsmanship to make use of it. Just then, Chloe approaches him and asks if she made a mistake. Surprised, Kang wonders when she arrived. He tells her nothing happened, but Chloe presses, "Really?" Our boy keeps his answer vague to avoid another yandere episode, and Chloe feels relieved. Kang, however, wonders about Chloe's true identity. She had been able to wield a sword even while unconscious, a blade filled with sorrow, yet still imbued with killing intent. It made her all the more dangerous. Chloe then asks Kang if she can invite him to dinner that night, wanting to repay him. Of course, she's not as skilled in cooking as he is, and as Kang thinks about dinner, he gets PTSD from what happened last time. However, seeing Chloe's hopeful puppy dog face, he hesitates. It feels awkward to refuse, but if he accepts, he might get into trouble again. Then, he comes up with an idea. Instead of dinner, he asks Chloe for a favor. He wants her to teach him swordsmanship. Hearing this, Chloe is happy and eagerly asks what he needs. A few moments later, Kang, holding a wooden sword, thinks that he needed a swordsmanship teacher anyway, and Chloe is frighteningly strong. He wonders if this is a good excuse, considering that since that day he makes sure to watch How to Survive a Yandere before bed. Inside the training hall, Chloe asks when Kang arrived, mentioning that she had been waiting for him over there. He replies that he just got here and asks about her. Chloe says she also just arrived. Suspicious, Kang asks for the time, and Chloe tells him it's around 6:30. He reminds her that they agreed to meet at 8, and Chloe simply smiles. As Kang looks at her outfit, Chloe asks if something's wrong, but in his mind, he notes how ripped she is when not in uniform. No wonder she's so strong. Kang hands Chloe a wooden sword, and as she takes it, she asks why they aren't using real swords. Kang says they should use wooden ones to avoid injuries. Chloe smiles and calls him kind. As she swings the wooden sword, Kang is stunned to see her aura manifesting even through the wooden weapon. He wonders just how strong Chloe's aura is. Gripping his wooden sword, he decides to be careful. Suddenly, a status window opens, and Kang confirms whether he can use the wooden sword without activating the blessing. He sees that the sword's specifications are fine and his physical growth is steady, but he wonders if the blessing normally has additional effects like this. He doesn't recall it working this way before. Observing Kang standing still, Chloe asks if something is wrong. Kang apologizes and reminds her that today is his first time practicing swordsmanship. so she should go easy on him. Chloe agrees, and Kang gets ready, signaling the start of their sparring session. As they face each other, Kang reflects on his practical approach. In his past life, he believed that seeing is believing. To become a master in any field, hard work alone isn't enough. His quick adaptation to the academy is also a product of all the knowledge he has absorbed. Chloe gathers her aura and charges at Kang with full speed. He barely dodges, surprised at how fast she is. He told her to take it easy, but she seems to be in a league of her own. She strikes again, and Kang blocks it, but her strength is incredible, barely managing to hold his ground. He tries to counterattack, but Chloe jumps into the air and prepares to strike again. Her speed increases even more. Kang braces himself and takes the hit head-on, but Chloe doesn't stop. She relentlessly strikes from different angles, pushing Kang back. Her strikes are extraordinarily heavy, and if this keeps up, he might get seriously injured. As Kang reaches his limit, he struggles to find an opportunity to counterattack, but then his wooden sword breaks in half. Seeing this, Chloe apologizes, saying she meant to go easy, but ended up breaking his weapon. At that moment, Kang's broken sword meets the conditions for the blessing of the sword god, and the blessing activates. Our boy loses control. His expression twists into something terrifying. He looks like a serial killer. Chloe backs off, unable to understand what is happening. She asks Kang if he is okay, but he doesn't respond. His consciousness fades. In his mind, he finds himself back in his old kitchen. A fish lies on the cutting board, and he contemplates which knife to use. But the system interrupts him, saying he can't choose. Instead, it tells him to just do what you do best, and presents his sashimi knife. The system asks how he feels, and Kang replies, "It feels perfect." The system reassures him, "Just leave everything to me." Back in reality, the system activates heat. Chloe asks if Kang is okay, but he slowly walks toward her and then suddenly charges with full force. Stunned, Chloe barely manages to block his strike, but he is now stronger than before. The force of his attack pushes her back, slamming her into the wall. Kang seems like a completely different person. He wastes no time and attacks again, exuding a murderous aura. Chloe, though confused, realizes she must stop the match. Chloe calls out his name in desperation. Inside Kang's mind, he's still in the kitchen, trying to slice the fish. But every time he tries, it dodges. Frustrated, he wonders why it's so noisy. Then, suddenly, he hears Chloe's voice calling his name. Back in reality, Kang's wooden sword is embedded in the wall, just inches away from Chloe. Snapping back to his senses, our boy takes a deep breath and says, "Let's stop here for today." Chloe, despite everything, simps for him, finding him sweet. She asks if he's okay. Kang thanks her for helping with his practice and decides to head in first. Later that night, Chloe walks to her dorm, reflecting on Kang. Ever since the class assignment test, she has noticed that his skills are not just raw strength, but something eerie. It's not just his abilities, but his instincts. Even though the blessing manifested unconsciously, Chloe realizes she is no match for Kang, especially with a half-training sword. She always knew he was strong, but she never expected this. At that moment, a masked figure appears. It's her brother, Nox. He tells Chloe that she seems to be enjoying herself. Chloe's expression darkens. She asks him why he is here. Nox coldly questions her, asking if this is what she has been doing at the academy, mingling with lowly people. Chloe tells him not to refer to Kang that way. Nox scoffs, acknowledging Kang's name before warning that if she continues associating with him, the Auditor family will eliminate him. But Chloe walks past Nox, confidently stating, even if the entire Auditor family comes for him, they won't be able to handle Kang. The scene then shifts to our boy, who reflects that he needs to clarify something. The power he has been granted is not some divine blessing or favor. Rather, it seems more like a curse. To avoid relying on the blessing of the sword god, our boy sets out to find new equipment. But that power seems to mock his efforts, following him like a shadow, waiting to take control. While Kang feels no pain, he experiences a strange, debilitating sensation that seems to go on endlessly. That curse manipulates him like a marionette, bound by invisible threads. Kang surrenders completely to the voice that whispers sweet, twisted words to him. Destroy more. Chloe's scream, filled with desperation, calls out the name that our boy has come to recognize as his own. In that cry, the fragments of his world are brought back together. Our boy throws away the training sword that had clung to him like his own skin, realizing that if he doesn't detach from it now, he will lose himself forever, until Chloe pulls him back into reality. Our boy feels a mix of irritation and gratitude. The sword god's blessing isn't something he can control. It's a curse disguised as power. Kang is just an outsider cast into this world. He didn't wish for much, just to live a normal life. He believed he could handle a few incidents as they came, but now he realizes there's something within his body, something trying to consume his reason. This was never a blessing. Rather, it was a curse solely intended to devour Kang, the art of the reverse heavens. After 3 days, in the classroom where all the students have gathered, we see Chloe chatting with her friend. Ever since the day she trained with Kang, our boy hasn't been seen. It has now been 3 days, and Chloe even went to his room to check on him, but all she heard were sounds of pain from inside. She finds herself missing the way Kang would sit in class, deep in thought, resting his chin on his hand. She's lost count of how many times she watched him like that. At first, she thought she had fallen for Kang because he saved her life, but maybe that was just an excuse, because right now, she truly misses him. The scene then shifts to the next day in the classroom, where Instructor Lee instructs everyone to keep quiet. He announces that today's training has been replaced with self-study due to the rain. He notes that Kang still hasn't shown up, but assumes our boy must have his reasons and trusts that he will return. Just as he tells the students to begin their self-study, the classroom door suddenly opens. Instructor Lee turns to see who it is, and he is shocked. It's Kang. As Kang walks down the stairs to his seat, Chloe is surprised to see him too. There's something different about him. Our boy, now carrying a new aura, apologizes to Instructor Lee. Seeing the change in Kang's presence, Lee says it's fine, and tells him to take his seat. As Kang settles in, the students in the class begin to whisper among themselves, the girls murmuring that he looks even more handsome than before. The scene then shifts to after class, where Chloe approaches Kang and asks if something happened to him. Our boy simply replies that he had a severe fever over the past few days and thanks her for worrying about him. Chloe blushes upon hearing that and says she's glad to hear he's okay. But in reality, over the past few days, our boy has been suffering from the backlash of the sword god's blessing. He couldn't eat. He locked himself in his room and he prayed for the pain to stop, but it didn't. The pain was worse than anything he had ever experienced. His hair and body structure began to change rapidly. This was the penalty of using the sword god blessing. In the present, Kang notices that Chloe seems to feel guilty, likely because she was the last person he fought. Wanting to ease her mind, he invites her to dinner. Chloe is surprised, but quickly says, "Of course," but then Kang adds that he wants to eat her cooking. Chloe happily agrees and says she'll cook whatever he wants. She then asks what he'd like to eat. Kang replies that he hasn't had fish in a while and recalls that the last time he had fish was at Chloe's dorm, but he couldn't eat it because it was too expensive. At that moment, Kang senses something behind him. He turns to see what he was sensing, and it turns out to be Chloe's brother, Nox. Chloe is shocked to see him. Seeing her reaction, Kang asks if she knows him, but Chloe remains silent. Our boy then walks straight toward Nox and says, "If you have something to say, then say it." He warns him not to keep glaring at him, but Nox continues to stare, his eyes filled with the same aura as Chloe's. Then, Chloe steps in and tells her brother not to come here. Hearing this, Kang realizes that Nox is Chloe's brother. He also notices that Chloe seems a bit scared of him. Nox scoffs and says that Kang doesn't seem strong. He then asks Chloe if she's sure she wants to be with someone like him, even if it means breaking the Auditor family's rules. Frustrated, Chloe replies that whether it's about the Auditor family or anything else, it's no longer her concern. Nox, unimpressed, coldly tells her that she is bound to the family and a slave to it. Meanwhile, Kang watches this scene unfold and thinks to himself, what the hell is this brother-sister K-drama? Nox then tells Chloe to leave this scammer behind and come back to the family. But Chloe, furious, shouts at him, "Do not call Kang like that." Kang sighs, noting that Chloe should lower her killing intent. He's thankful that all the students have already left for lunch. Observing the situation, Kang finally understands everything. The Auditor is an organization of shadows specializing in infiltration and assassination. They appear later in the game, and they are ridiculously strong. Now, he realizes that Chloe comes from the Auditor family. Looking at Nox, our boy recognizes the face of someone used to killing. And now, everything makes sense. The Auditor family likely eliminates anyone who threatens their order in order to maintain control. Kang then looks at Chloe, who is trembling. He realizes that all she wants is to live a normal life, but just like his own connection to the blessing of the sword god, Chloe was born into a family of killers, a place that won't allow her to live peacefully, a life where she is constantly forced to kill like a machine. It must be unbearable. Kang knows he is no hero. He may not be able to save the world, but even so, he can at least change one girl's life. Stepping forward, Kang tells Chloe not to worry. He then turns to Nox and says, "Follow me. I will rip out your dirty tongue today." The scene then shifts to the staff room, where Instructor Lee is deep in thoughts. He senses something strange about Kang, noticing that his face seemed stripped of all emotion. Just then, another instructor enters and jokes that Lee's head looks even more bald today. Lee, annoyed, simply replies, "Don't mess with bald people." But before he can say anything else, he receives a call. Answering the phone, Instructor Lee is informed that a student has requested access to the subspace. Shocked, he asks for the student's identity and their opponent. He falls silent when he hears the response. The student requesting access is Kang, and his opponent is Nox.